Observe these two lawns. The lengths and breadths of these lawns are shown. The cost to fence each lawn is the same, but the cost of cutting the grass is different for each lawn. Why is that so? Let's find out. The cost of fencing these two lawns is the same because the perimeters of both the lawns are equal. The cost of cutting the grass is different for these two lawns because the space occupied by the two lawns is different. The space occupied by a closed figure is called its area. As the areas of the two lawns are not the same, the cost of cutting the grass differs. Observe these figures. Let's see how we can find the area of each of these figures. First, let's find the area of this figure. We can use grids to find the area. Let's say that each square is 1 unit length. Hence, this figure has an area of 8 square units. Similarly, we can find the area of this figure. As you can see, this figure comprises 9 unit squares. Therefore, the area of this figure is 9 square units. Next, let's see how we can find the area of this square. Using the grid, we can see that the area of this figure is 9 square units. Notice that the number of squares in each row and the total number of rows is the same. Now, let's increase each side of the square. Here again, the number of squares in each row and the total number of rows are the same. So another simpler way to find the area of a square is to multiply the length of one side by itself. This means that there are 5 squares in each row and there are 5 rows in all. So, the area would be 5 times 5, which is 25 square units. In general, the area of a square is equal to side times side. Finally, let's find the area of this rectangle. Observe that the rectangle has 3 rows and each row has 5 squares. Thus, the area of this rectangle is equal to 3 times 5, which is 15 square units. So in general, the area of a rectangle is the product of its length and breadth. Now, let's revisit the lawns we saw earlier. Note that one of the lawns is a square and the other lawn is a rectangle. Can you find the area of squares and rectangles without using grids? Now, let's see how we can find the area of such complex figures. Look closely into this figure. Some squares in the figure are complete, whereas others are half squares. Let's count the fully filled squares in the figure. There are 10 such squares. Next, let's count the squares that are half filled. There are 8 such squares. 2 half-filled squares make a fully filled square. So, 8 halves can make 4 full squares. Therefore, the area of this figure is the sum of 10 and 4, that is, 14 square units. Now, you find the area of this figure. Next, let's see how we can find the area of this complex shape. Let's find the area of this shape using square grids. First, let's count the number of fully filled squares in the figure. Then, let's see how many half-filled squares are occupied by the figure. Notice that there are more than half-filled squares in the figure too. So, we will count the number of squares that are more than half-filled. Finally, we count the number of squares that are less than half-filled in the figure. Now, we add the number of squares to find the area of the shape. Those squares that are more than half are considered as a fully filled square, whereas squares that are less than half are not considered. Now try to find the area of the given figure. The area of a rectangular window frame is 2,400 square centimeters. Find the length of the frame if its breadth is 30 centimeters. As the window frame is a rectangle, we use the formula length times breadth to find the area. We put in the values for the area and breadth. Thus, we find the length of the window frame.